I, Judy Garland, was born when I was 12 years old.
She's only 12 years old. Her name is Judy Garland. She signed a 7-year contract with the MGM studio. Isn't that great? Gosh, wait until you hear her sing.
My father died just weeks after I started at Metro. The night before, while I was doing a radio show, the doctor called to say Dad would be listening. I sang my heart out for him, but by morning he was gone. After Dad died, MGM took over as my father. I quickly learned I was MGM's property. In Hollywood, being a property means losing individuality and becoming a studio possession. When you're raised in a world like that, it's tough to have a clear sense of perspective. You question where the real you ends and their version begins. Is this really me? I never intended to become a movie star. It just happened. We lived in a big white frame house in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. By the time I was born, my sisters were already a song and dance team.
It was an unwanted pregnancy, and Judy's mother and father tried various home remedies to abort the baby. Luckily, the family doctor convinced them that not only was it illegal and dangerous, but that they would regret not having their third child.
Judy Garland was born Frances Ethel Gumm on June 10th, 1922, to Frank and Ethel Gumm. Both were in the vaudeville scene, and she was put on stage from the age of 2 years old singing Jingle Bells at her father's theater.
One snowy Christmas Eve when I was 2, I took to the stage, singing and dancing. I sang 5 choruses of Jingle Bells before my father carried me off the stage.
They were determined to get Baby Gumm on stage, so they formed the Gumm Sisters Kitty Act. She did 8 shows per day in vaudeville.
We all liked California so much that my parents decided to stay, and my father bought a movie theater in Lancaster. I never really had any childhood. The only time I felt accepted or wanted was when I was performing on stage.
The Gumm Sisters made their big screen debut in 1929. Here we see 7-year-old Frances singing and dancing with their sisters on screen for the very first time. Even at this age, it's obvious that that's Judy Garland.
No one ever taught me what to do on stage. I never had a dance or singing lesson. Vaudeville was full of self-taught performers who made up their own routines and even sewed their own costumes.
In another surviving short film, Frances gets a solo bit at the end of the song.
In Chicago, at the Oriental Theater, we were billed as the Glum Sisters. We complained to the MC, who suggested Garland, after his friend, the critic Robert Garland, so we adopted the name. Around that same time, I took the name Judy from a Hoagie Carmichael song.
She's the one for me, heaven sent her to be my Judy, my Judy.
So the Gumm Sisters became the Garland Sisters, and Frances Gumm became Judy Garland. It's fascinating to see her in her first Technicolor appearance on film with her sisters. Even though it's short, you get a little glimpse of how their harmonies worked and how, even with the harmonies, she stands out.
I auditioned at every major studio and by process of elimination ended up at Metro, where Louis B. Mayer, who ran the studio, heard me sing. We soon got the call that they wanted to put me on the payroll. In our house, the word of Louis B. Mayer became law. When Mother wanted to discipline me, all she had to say was, "I'll tell Mr. Mayer." I began to think they put me under contract just to send me to school.
The studio was big enough that they could sign talent without having any definite plan for them.
Deanna Durbin and I were the only adolescent girls on the lot, and eventually someone discovered they'd hired us. We ended up making that awful two-reeler every Sunday.
You call every Jones and Brown, and I'll call all the Smiths. But the concert's free, Mr. Smith. It's free. Oh, thank you, Mr. Smith.
She sang opera. I sang swing.
From Tin Pan Alley to Mexicali, this is the ballet. Do that, do that, do that, do that, what?
Deanna went on to Universal and became a major star. Then I made my first full-length picture. Pigskin Parade, on loan to 20th Century Fox. It was the first time I saw myself on screen.
Fox was really smart because what they did was they teased the audience with her popping in and out saying, "I can sing, do y'all want to hear me?"
I can sing. You want to hear me? Yeah!
And she keeps getting shot down by the other characters. So about 20 minutes or so later, she finally gets the chance to sing.
I got a song. Can I sing it?
Well, would it make you happy, honey?
Oh, it sure would.
Then you sing it.
And she just knocks it out of the park to the point where the people behind her are obviously amazed at her singing. Like, that wasn't acting at all.
I can't even describe how disappointed I was. I expected the camera to transform me into a glamorous star, but instead I saw a freckled, fat girl with a snub nose, just the same old baby gum.
Even though she was running away with all of the raves and all of the reviews about the film, she just was so insecure already about how she looked that she just didn't like the movie.
I learned a great deal from Roger Edens, my vocal coach at the studio. He handled all my musical arrangements and wrote Dear Mr. Gable for me to sing at Clark Gable's birthday on the set of Parnell.
Dear Mr. Gable, I am writing this to you. And I hope that you will
Imagine making
read it
Clark
so
Gable cry. A few days later, he sent me a charm bracelet inscribed to Judy from her fan, Clark Gable. And I sang it again for Broadway Melody of 1938.
I guess I'm just another fan of yours, and I thought I'd write and tell you so.
One of the big numbers in that picture had me coming onto the stage in a long white car. Buddy Ebsen greeted me in the middle of the stage, and off we danced. That film gave me an opportunity to show I could both sing and dance. When at last I got some parts at Metro, in Broadway Melody of 1938 and Thoroughbreds Don't Cry, I had to look at the results sideways to make them seem bearable. I thought I was bad. I tried too hard. I thought I overacted something awful.
Thoroughbreds Don't Cry is notable as Judy's first on-screen pairing with Mickey Rooney.
They really didn't know what to do with her. Louis B. Mayer referred to her as his little hunchback girl. They called her fat, they called her a pig, and they didn't know how to use her talent. She had this great big voice and all of this talent, but they didn't know how to frame it because she wasn't the typical Hollywood glam girl. She was the girl next door. So what they did was they wrote films for the girl next door.
Hollywood has a way of making you feel like it's the center of the universe. You're immersed in it. When you're raised in a world like that, it's tough to have a clear sense of perspective. When a studio signs you, their publicity team churns out stories that make you wonder, is this really me?
Biggest crowd in years that everybody sings. Judy Garland will be the nation's new singing star.
They don't lie, but they embellish, and a new version of you emerges. You can't deny it, especially when they're making you a star.
With everybody singing, MGM was really, really behind her at this point, and they were really gearing up the star-making machine.
From all advance reports, Judy Garland will become an overnight sensation.
Even in the trailers and also especially in the print ads, it was, here's a prophecy for 1938, Judy Garland, stardom. In spite of all of this buildup of her as the next big star and everything, the script for Everybody Sing still referred to her as an ugly duckling.
Oh, darling, I do wish you'd stop growing. And look at your hair. Oh, poor little ugly duckling. Well, Mother loves you anyway.
In fact, the original title of the film was Ugly Duckling. Then they changed it to Everybody Sing.
Judy was popular as this jazzy singer who her forte in particular were these red hot tempo musical numbers. She was in a film where she gets expelled from school because she has, quote, corrupted the rest of the girls into singing swing music during class.
The main highlight, I think, of Everybody Sing is when Judy sings Down on Melody Farm. She really gets to show what she can do vocally, and she really does stop the show.
I quickly learned I was MGM's property. My main purpose at MGM was to work, and if I worked, the Garland property paid off. But if I got fat, I couldn't work.
Not only did she have this amazing $1 million adult singing voice, but it was trapped basically inside the body of a typically awkward 14-year-old girl, which in MGM terms meant ugly and dumpy and chubby.
There was a constant struggle between MGM and me, whether to eat or not, what to eat, and how much to eat.
It's really unclear when the studio actually prescribed pills for her, whether to sleep or to keep her going during the day. But her mom definitely had her and her sisters on pills that were either caffeine pills, which were very common at the time, or the newly released Benzedrine, which had been out for about a year or two. And most people didn't realize how addictive and dangerous these pills could be. Love Finds Andy Hardy was Judy's first appearance in the series as Betsy Booth, which is a character she played in 3 of the films, even though Love Finds Andy Hardy is probably the best.
How do you do?
Good morning. I'm Betsy Booth.
I spent years singing and dancing in vaudeville without reading a line. But during that picture, Mickey Rooney gave me my first real insight into acting. Before our first scene, he took my hands and said, "Now, honey, you've got to believe this. Make like you're singing it." After that, my scenes were more sincere and believable.
As Betsy Booth, Judy plays more of a gal pal to Andy Hardy. She's not an object of desire or anything like that, and she's an in-between, which is the name of the song that she sings in the movie, which she laments about not being a child but not being an adult yet.
I'm too old for toys, and I'm too young for boys. I'm just an in-between.
It's not until the end of the movie, when she wows him with her singing, that he finally sees her as something more than just an adolescent kid.
She partnered up with Mickey Rooney and made these really fun films, but none of them were her magnum opus. She really hadn't found her footing.
So after Love Finds Andy Hardy, they decided to rush her into a quickie B musical called Listen, Darling.
Pounding on the window, Buzz.
Don't pay any attention.
And that film gave her the opportunity to sing on film the song that she had sung on stage, and also for her audition at MGM, which was Zing with the Strings of My Heart.
Something inside of me started a symphony. Sing with the strings of my heart.
Up until then, she was mostly in radio, and she felt she wasn't getting her chance. She was in smaller films, but she wasn't a box office draw at this point.
One day, Mr. Mayer called me into his office and told me Mervyn LeRoy was going to produce The Wizard of Oz and wanted me to play Dorothy. It turned out to be my first big break.
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
And then The Wizard of Oz came, and that was the moment that launched Judy Garland to household name status.
That role was written for Judy, as were the songs.
She was thrilled. She had the leading role in MGM's most expensive motion picture to date. It was a musical. There were songs being written for her. She was surrounded by a cast of very talented comedians and dancers, and it was a happy time for her, and she conceded that.
I suppose Over the Rainbow is the song most people associate with me. I remember I sang the song, they recorded it, and then they shot the scene.
Famously or infamously, Over the Rainbow was almost cut from The Wizard of Oz as a result of previews, largely because it just slowed the picture down.
There were also critiques that the Kansas scenes were too long, and Over the Rainbow was the only scene that could have been completely removed without creating serious continuity issues. And so from a logistics perspective, it made sense to do that. Thank goodness they didn't.
Thank goodness it did.
Why, oh, why can't
Even for people who don't know who Judy Garland was, there's that instant recognition of her as Dorothy singing Over the Rainbow.
Sometimes people confuse me with the characters I've played in pictures. Ever since The Wizard of Oz, people still think I'm 12. You wouldn't believe the disappointed looks I get when they see me. They must expect a little girl in pigtails to come out singing Over the Rainbow.
Lots of films get labeled as timeless, but The Wizard of Oz truly is.
Members of the Academy, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests.
I received a special Academy Award that year and convinced my mother to let me wear long white gloves and a little white ermine cape to the reception.
That year, Judy received a miniature juvenile Oscar for her work in both The Wizard of Oz and Babes in Arms.
I'll never forget my first big crowd. The studio sent Mickey and me to New York on a personal appearance tour where we did 6 shows a day. When we arrived in New York, there were 10,000 people waiting at Grand Central. I was terrified. Even with the best intentions, a mob like that could crush you.
With Oz in post-production, Judy started Babes in Arms.
Good morning to you. When the band began to play.
It was her third film with Mickey Rooney, but it was the first of a subgenre of the movie musical, which was the let's put on a show genre. Their chemistry was so unique and so magical.
Just think when our names are up in electric lights. You the big composer and producer, and me the singing star.
When Mickey and I made Babes in Arms, I got my first long dress. Most girls get their first evening dress for prom, but I got mine to look the part when I placed my feet in the wet cement at Grauman's Chinese Theater.
This really cemented her status as a true movie star.
After Oz, Judy's career was a rocket ship. She was making several films a year. She was a box office bombshell. She was everywhere. And she was getting cast still in these, hey, let's go put on a musical type movies.
And then came Strike Up the Band. Mickey and I played a couple of normal kids, in show business.
The house lights are going down.
We're ready to go.
On stage.
Lights, music, curtain.
The La Conga number remains one of Busby Berkeley's biggest and best musical numbers.
In Havana, every Cubana shakes her bandana to the La Conga.
But it's so big, and the energy, not just from Mickey and Judy, but from the entire cast and the extras and all of the dancers, it still just has that little something extra that just is electrifying even today. Another standout was Our Love Affair.
Our love affair was meant to be. It's me for you, dear.
And this became a standard that was nominated for the Oscar for Best Song.
And then I played my first grown-up dramatic role in Little Nellie Kelly. I even died in that film.
But I'll be near you.
It was also my first love scene with George Murphy as my sweetheart. He was the perfect choice, but I was so flushed afterward, I couldn't even look at him.
For Ziegfeld Girl, Judy was paired with two of MGM's biggest glamazons, as they called it, Lana Turner and Hedy Lamarr.
In the movies, beauty was the standard of judgment, and I definitely didn't have it. So I began to dislike the me I saw reflected in my mirror, especially when I compared myself with the real beauties on the lot.
Judy had several notable songs, but one of the highlights is Minnie from Trinidad. It's a big Busby Berkeley number with tons of dancing and singing and all of that in the costumes. The centerpiece production number in Ziegfeld Girl was the new song You Stepped Out of a Dream.
I'll never forget how Busby Berkeley filmed 2 choruses of that number in one long take. I had to walk down the steps whilst singing without looking at them, then hit my marks and weave through lines of people, all while counting my steps and singing.
Judy's best number in the film is I'm Always Chasing Rainbows, which is one of her best vocals ever.
I'm always chasing rainbows, watching clouds drifting by.
It's been said that when she performed it on the set that Lana Turner looked at her and said, I give all of my beauty just for half of your talent. Babes on Broadway was basically a transition film, and it's because Judy's presented as more of a desirable young woman. They'd sort of outgrown the teen musicals at this point, and they even had their first romantic kiss. So the Oscar-nominated song How About You was written for Babes on Broadway.
I like New York in June, how about you?
And the way Mickey and Judy perform it is just perfect. It's so sublime.
I like it, how about you?
It was around the same time that Judy had several big romances, including one with Artie Shaw, who she fell for really hard, but he ended up eloping with Lana Turner, which devastated Judy. She also had a fling with songwriter Johnny Mercer, who actually wrote a couple of songs about his love for her, including That Old Black Magic.
That old black magic has me in its spell. That old black magic that you weave so well.
And then from that romance, she went into her romance with musician David Rose. And she was ready for marriage, or she thought she was ready for marriage.
When I was 19, Dave Rose and I eloped to Las Vegas. If you call it eloping when your mother goes along. I was due on the set in a matter of hours when I wired MGM to say, Dave and I were married this morning. I don't know how to explain that marriage. There wasn't any real reason for it. I was much too young, but you couldn't have made me believe it then.
It was around this time that Judy found out that she was pregnant.
My mother told me you can't have it. You'll ruin your career. But it's my baby, I said, and I want to have it. No, you can't, she said, and I've talked it over with David, and he agrees. The next morning, my mother drove me to a shabby little office just outside of town. After a few minutes, she and David and MGM were all satisfied. For Me and My Gal was the first film to work alongside the marvelous Gene Kelly.
For me and my gal, the birds are singing. For me and my gal.
It was during this film that MGM finally started giving Judy the glamour treatment, and this was reflected in the ads and also the promotional photos that they did of her, and she's very, very glamorous.
I was partly responsible for bringing Gene to Hollywood. You know, I had seen him in Pal Joey on Broadway and told Metro what a fine thing I thought it would be if they put him into movies.
Gene Kelly was new to Hollywood, and Judy really showed him the ropes and taught him how to act for the camera. And in return, Gene helped Judy with the more challenging dance routines in the film. Judy gave a brilliant and nuanced performance in For Me and My Gal. It's likely that her performance was influenced by the soldiers she met and performed for during her USO tours, which had happened just before she went into For Me and My Gal. And she even joined the Hollywood Bond Cavalcade Tour with Mickey Rooney, Fred Astaire, Betty Hutton, and a host of other stars.
It was during that time that our marriage was running out, and I was despondent. We were at Fort Ord near Monterey when news arrived of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. You can drive yourself crazy trying to understand why God allows for war. But it's human beings who create the conflicts and build the machines of destruction. I'm sometimes asked if I tire of singing Over the Rainbow. Honestly, that would be like getting tired of breathing. The song is a question, really. Why, oh, why can't I? Those lyrics capture everyone's longing for things to be better.
There is a new star in the heavens.
So next, Judy jumped into Presenting Lily Mars. For the finale, Judy was given the full MGM glamour treatment. Her hair was elegantly styled and up for the first time, and she was wearing that beautiful sleeveless black gown. It was obvious now that the adult Judy Garland had officially arrived. Next was the final installment of the Let's Put on a Show musicals with Mickey Rooney, and that was Girl Crazy.
Mickey and I were prisoners at Metro. We were overworked and underfed, and neither of us grew very tall, you know. They worked us so hard we became munchkins.
The original director of Girl Crazy was Busby Berkeley, and he was a taskmaster, and he had the cast and crew filming for 9 days on the I Got Rhythm musical number. And he pushed everyone to the limit on the musical number to the point where when you watch the finished film, Judy looks almost manic.
in green pastures. I got my man who could ask for anything more.
For years, Judy had relied on the pills off and on to give her energy and also self-confidence. But at this point, everything finally came crashing down.
I shouldn't complain. We all did well out of Metro, and Metro did well out of us. There were lots of good times, too. Mickey and I had lots of fun together. And it's the fun that gets you through life and sees you through the heartaches. A sense of humor is everything.
The production went to Palm Springs for some location shots for Judy and Mickey. Could You Use Me is classic Gershwin, and it's one of the best duets they ever did, even though it's a comedy duet. It's not a romantic ballad.
I cannot use you. Excuse me.
But Not For Me was Judy's best ballad in the film.
They're writing songs of love, but not for me.
Although Judy was married to David Rose, there were several overlapping romances that are worth mentioning. So there's a very, very torrid love affair with 20th Century Fox star Tyrone Power. And then there was also a big love affair with writer, producer, and director Joe Mankiewicz.
Of all the pictures I made for Metro, I think Meet Me in St. Louis is my favorite.
Most people don't realize that Judy didn't even want to be in Meet Me in St. Louis at first. She and everybody around her felt that playing a lovesick teenager would be a backward step in her career.
Clang, clang, clang went the trolley. Ding, ding, ding went the bell.
The trolley song is one of those that's as identified with Judy as Over the Rainbow.
From the moment I saw him, I fell.
I was known on the lot as a one-take girl, 2 at most. Nobody directed me very much. I just did what came naturally. But Vincent Minnelli was different.
Judy was unaccustomed to Vincent Minnelli's directing style. He loved to rehearse a lot.
I was baffled. I couldn't believe my ears. At lunch, I told my assistant something terrible happened between my last film and this one. I'd lost all my talent. I cried so much. I ruined my makeup and practically had to be pushed back onto the set.
For The Boy Next Door, Vincent framed her in the window, which created a breathtaking effect.
How can I ignore the boy next door? I love him more than I can say.
Never had she looked so glowingly beautiful. It's interesting because the more Judy saw herself on screen through Vincent's eyes, the more she fell in love with him.
I quickly realized what Vincent wanted. He wanted me to let go and fully become the character. He pushed the whole cast, and in the end, Meet Me in St. Louis became the work I was most proud of up until that point.
It was in this film that Judy introduced Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. She loved the song, but the original lyrics were just too sad. And she told the songwriters, she said, if I sing that to little Margaret O'Brien, the audience is going to hate me. And so they changed the lyrics. And the song became a classic. Meet Me in St. Louis was MGM's highest grossing movie to that date. And after that, Judy wasn't just a movie star, she was a movie superstar.
And then she did a film called The Clock. And that was her first non-singing role where she really took on a dramatic piece.
The Clock was my first straight dramatic role. No singing. Robert Walker was set to play opposite me. It was wonderful. But when it didn't come together right away, the studio shelved it. I went in and told them what the picture needed. Vincent Minnelli.
She trusted Vincent to bring out her best, and it was during the clock that their attraction to each other blossomed into real romance.
Critics said the clock proved that I could hold my end without a 40-piece band.
I didn't know where to look.
And then the world realized, wait a minute, this girl can do more than sing and dance and act in these lighter affairs. She's got real dramatic talent. From then on, her ticket was written at MGM. She could do any role she wanted, and she was bringing in big money.
Next up was the big-budget original musical film, The Harvey Girls, in which the centerpiece number was On the Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe. And the Harvey Girls also reunited Judy with her Wizard of Oz scarecrow, Ray Bolger.
She was gorgeous in that film, and they had that beautiful waltz together during the ballroom scene. Judy was one of those rare actresses where she could dance with anyone, but they really did have this amazing chemistry with one another.
The day after she finished The Harvey Girls, on June 15th, 1945, Judy married Vincent Minnelli at her mother's home.
Vincent was the most interesting man I'd ever known. He was so quiet and rather shy and always making you laugh.
Years before, when Vincent first came to MGM, he was wearing eyeshadow and lipstick, and so most people assumed he was gay, while other people thought he was just artistic. Louis B. Mayer gave her away, and Vincent and Judy left that evening for their honeymoon in New York.
It was the first time in years that I could just relax and have fun and let somebody else take care of me. I felt happy and loved.
As they were walking along the Hudson River, Judy produced a bottle of pills and threw them into the river. She told Vincent that she didn't need them anymore because the future seemed bright.
By the time we got back to Hollywood, I knew the baby was coming.
Due to her pregnancy, the filming of Till the Clouds Roll By was moved up for her guest spot as real-life Broadway legend Marilyn Miller, in which she sang Look for the Silver Lining.
So always look for the silver lining.
In her big number titled Who, Judy descends a staircase surrounded by another group of chorus boys.
Dreams I know can never come true. Seems as though I'll ever be blue.
She was in full command of her talents, singing and dancing with a brilliance few could match. And then on March 12, 1946, Liza May Minnelli was born.
We were simply wild over Liza from the first moment we laid eyes on her. I deeply wanted to be a good wife and a good mother, but I was scared.
Up next was a guest appearance in Ziegfeld Follies, an all-star comedy musical review.
Now, you darlings, you adorable, dear, dear boys, I'm going to tell you all about my next picture. What is my next picture?
And Judy showed a real flair for high comedy, and her fans swooned over the fact that she was just this high comedy priestess.
She paid was worth the pain, for on a cold and frosty morrow.
It was a new image for her, which was light years away from her girl-next-door persona.
When I was still a little girl, I realized people would believe anything about movie stars, often without any evidence at all. If it's printed somewhere or even just rumored, they believe the good things and the bad.
In 1947, after more than a year away from the studio, she started on The Pirate with Gene Kelly, again under the direction of Vincent Minnelli. Vincent created a fanciful, colorful Caribbean world through his use of color and set design and those fabulous costumes. And despite the issues behind the scenes, Judy gave one of her best comedic performances. And and she looked wonderful. Although Judy's struggles during the making of this film have been blown way out of proportion, we do know that she did have a breakdown during rehearsals of Be a Clown, and this resulted in her being off the set for 2 weeks. 3 days after finishing Be a Clown, Judy attempted suicide, but that went unreported. The legend is that she walked in on Vincent with one of their male servants, and she ran into the bathroom and tried to cut her wrist. Her next film, Easter Parade, was centered around the songs of Irving Berlin, and it was supposed to co-star Gene Kelly, but he broke his ankle. There was really only one star of that caliber who could replace him, and that was Fred Astaire.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think you'll do.
You think I'll do what?
I'm looking for someone to dance with.
People often ask if I was nervous dancing with Fred Astaire. What a silly question. He put me completely at ease.
Judy started work on the novelty number Mr. Monotony. She performed it brilliantly, but it was cut before the film was released. Luckily, the footage survives.
Sometimes he would change the key, but the same
She wore the top half of a tuxedo with the fedora,
emerged from Mr. Monotony.
which was similar to the outfit she would make iconic in summer stock. One of the funniest scenes in Easter Parade is when her character tries to prove to Fred Astaire that she can turn heads walking down the street. She certainly does turn heads, and then it's revealed that she's been distorting her face the whole time to get the attention.
Right. You've got it.
Thank you.
The film's highlight was A Couple of Swells.
The country far away from the city smells.
They were just magical together, and the number is an all-time movie musical classic. In 1948, Judy did a guest spot in the all-star biopic Words and Music. That was the final screen pairing of Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland, and it was their first and only time together in Technicolor.
I miss the kisses and I miss the bites. I wish I were in love again.
Her next assignment was the Barclays of Broadway, which was intended to re-team her with Fred Astaire. But Judy wasn't showing up and almost immediately was fired by registered letter and put on suspension without pay.
Every day I went to work with tears in my eyes and resistance in my heart and mind. The studio had become a sort of a haunted house for me. I just wanted to scream.
It wasn't the big-budget, splashy musical like Easter Parade, but the chemistry between Judy and her co-star Van Johnson is what really made In the Good Old Summertime. It was reported that after her performance of I Don't Care in the film, audiences spontaneously applauded, which was very unusual for a movie at the time. In the Good Old Summertime was also the screen debut of Liza Minnelli. Judy's 2.5-year-old daughter made a cameo in the film's final shot.
Then came Annie Get Your Gun, which represented millions of dollars to the studio. It was a picture I wanted to do, too, but nothing seemed to go right.
MGM purchased the rights to Annie Get Your Gun for Judy, and she was perfect for the role. But by the time the film went into production, she was in no shape for another big-budget musical.
One Friday, I canceled a rehearsal, and in a few hours, I was out of the picture.
Footage of several songs and scenes survive, and they're fascinating to watch, but it's obvious that something's lacking.
Doing what comes naturally. Doing what comes naturally. Oh, you don't have to know how to read or write when you're out with a feller in the pale moonlight.
There are so many myths and legends regarding Judy's career at MGM, but that's especially true over time on Annie Get Your Gun.
Without a care, I may run away with Big Chief Son of a Bear and I.
That entire debacle was totally unnecessary. It was callous to Judy, and it was a total waste of money. In the end, Betty Hutton was borrowed from Paramount to play the role. And it turned out to be one of the biggest what-ifs of Judy Garland's career.
It seemed that Vincent sided with the studio rather than me. My dearest desire to know and love another person, as I had never been able to do, was blowing up in my face.
Her marriage to Vincent was at its end at the time, and even when she went home to Vincent, and he represented MGM.
I was having my share of troubles with the studio, and, well, there's no doubt about it, my physical condition didn't help.
The studio doctors continued to prescribe amphetamines to keep her awake and barbiturates to put her to sleep. But we have to remember that this was before we had the data to understand that these were addictive medications. At the time, they just thought they were miracle drugs, and they had no idea the long-term side effects.
At times, I have been pretty much a walking advertisement for sleeping pills, and even a doctor's prescriptions can put a tremendous strain on the nervous system.
She had been in and out of rehab a couple of times. They had tried getting her treatment. They had realized that her amphetamine barbiturate habit, which by that point they were having her pull these really long days, 72 hours at a clip, waking up, going back to sleep, doing it all over again every day. It was very strenuous on her body. Her weight continued to fluctuate. Her health was really suffering.
There's a pill for every ailment. I found them all. I woke up with pills, and I went to sleep with them, too. The studio had suspended me, but then helped finance an 8-month stay at a Boston hospital where I went for rest and recuperation. I was able to patch things up with Vincent, at least for a time. I returned to Hollywood, rested, full of hope and courage, and eager to work for my family.
And then she made Summer Stock, and you can see at the beginning of Summer Stock, she looks healthy, she looks vibrant, and that's because she'd just come out of treatment and was off the pills.
I made Summer Stock with Gene Kelly, who was a dear.
By late 1949, Gene Kelly was at his peak, and Summer Stock was actually a backward step for him. But Judy's doctor urged him to do it, saying that she needed someone that she could trust.
We got through Summer Stock, but not without a struggle. Yeah, I was desperately trying to prove, not only to the world, but to myself, that I was making good as a person.
The entire cast and crew did everything they could to keep Judy happy and comfortable. Not out of pity, but out of their love for her and her talents.
As usual, I was late. I've been unpunctual all my life, and there were fights over that. I was wobbly and unsure, but Gene encouraged me to ignore what people were saying. He laughed with me, and he helped keep down the friction.
She was still struggling to get to the set on time. Towards the end of the film, she fell off the wagon. Her co-stars really pulled her through that film.
But MGM was still pressuring her to lose weight again.
They kept telling me, "Get the weight off, Judy. You're still too fat." Too fat? At 105? So I started to get ill again. And the only way for me to get weight off was more Benzedrine.
When the work on the film was complete, Judy went away to relax. But after just a couple of weeks, MGM came calling again.
And then they decided to shoot Get Happy.
Shout hallelujah, come on, get happy. Get ready for the judgment day. The sun is shining, come on, get happy.
And when she came back to the set, you will notice if you watch the film, she looks like two different people.
During her time away, she lost 20 pounds, and she looked so good that when she arrived on the set, she got catcalls from the crew, which she loved. That's one of Judy's finest musical numbers ever put on film. She's sexy, chic, and mature, and alongside Over the Rainbow and the Trolley Song, that's one of her most iconic performances. Judy planned to take 6 months off to rest, but MGM came calling after just a few weeks. They wanted her to replace the pregnant June Allison in Royal Wedding. She could have said no, and should have, but she couldn't risk another suspension, and she needed the money.
2 weeks into rehearsals for Royal Wedding, I was jumpy and irritable and sleeping very little. And then I canceled the rehearsal. and in a matter of hours, I was suspended indefinitely. It's hard for me to talk about what happened next. I felt humiliated and unwanted, and I wanted to hurt the people who had hurt me. I just didn't want to live anymore. I realize now that my foolish attempt to kill myself was little more than a desperate effort to get the people I love to say they loved me too.
After weeks of back and forth, MGM considered keeping Judy, especially after Summer Stock was a hit. But on September 29, 1950, MGM released her from her contract. It was the end of an era.
I had every hope that my best years and my best work lay ahead of me. I was ready to try my hand at radio and television and concerts, of course. Mistakes can't be erased, only teach us to move forward. I just let go and embraced a whole new outlook on life. Perhaps I, Judy Garland, had at last grown up.